Hello everybody, welcome. This is Miss Darling in the studio, and here I am again with another bunch of masterboards coordinated to go with each other to bring harmony and unity to a junk journal. And as I stated in the past, I like making smaller covers. You know, you have your cover for your journal, but then I like to have a thinner cover made out of cardstock for each of my signatures within a journal. And so if you like that idea, then it's important to think ahead and try to coordinate masterboards, either to be used back to back or one to be used on one signature and the other to be used on the second signature. So let's talk a little bit about coupling. And this is my term for it, and you might want to call it something else. So here's a masterboard, a vintage masterboard that I made, and I've been using entirely scraps out of my stash and trying to use up scraps of paper and things that I just have so much of, and you know, opening up some storage space by getting rid of a lot of stuff that I have on hand. And so I made this masterboard using scraps. Here's a piece of fabric and, you know, just random things. Put on a focal point and said I'm calling it a day. Well, then I wanted to have something. If I printed this out on cardstock, I like to print out my design on the back of the cardstock, and I'd like it to feel good with whatever's on the front and back cover. So I made this again out of scraps of paper that I have on hand, and I just left this real simple, which I can embellish more later on if I choose to. And so those were printed back to back. So here is the front cover, and you open it up, and this is what you see, which will probably have other embellishment. And then this is the inside back, and then you close it up and you see this. So this will probably get some extra ephemera put on that will maybe have a little bit of orange tinge to it, so it coordinates better with what's on the back. Those are my first two masterboards I'm showing you in this video. I love making masterboards. They're so useful and fun to create. So here is one that has some teal mixed with the brown tones, a little bit of kind of a rosy color here. And again, these were scraps that I just pulled out of my stash and glued down in a random manner, and then decided how to embellish. And like this particular design right here and this one down here, I actually cut out of another scrap, and it had holes in it because I had used a paper punch out of this particular paper, and I had these left over. Well, I glued them down, but then decided to, instead of just leaving the holes showing, I would kind of cover them over with additional ephemera, and that's where the butterflies and everything else came into play. And so this is the secondary masterboard that will coordinate with this one. And they will either be two covers for two different signatures in a journal, or they will be front and back. And so let me show you how it came out printed front to back. So here's the front cover, and you open it up and you would see that. And then here's the inside back, and turn it over and you would see this as the back page of a single journal, or you could use them as front front and back cover of 2 different journals. Or you could print them off on, just regular, say 24-pound paper and use them as pages inside as part of a signature. So there's many different uses for this. Okay, here's one of the Masterboards. I made this one first, and this again was out of scraps. And this side over here is a piece of a print that I made on a jelly plate. And so I coordinated those together, the colors worked. And then on the inside, I just didn't think this was enough. So what I did is I taped some flowers and lace onto this Masterboard and scanned it and made a copy of it and then took them off. And so I'm left with my original painting, which was made on a jelly plate. And I could use that if I want something just really plain and simple. And you see they work together perfectly. But I printed them off, and here is the front cover. And then you open it up, and there's the inside front. And you see that's this paper with the embellishments. I didn't want to glue them down because I didn't want to use up all my embellishments, and so I just used some artist tape on the back of them and put them down long enough to make a copy and to print it off. And here's the other side, and then you would flip it over and that would be the back page. So now, while I was at it, my printer didn't quite pull the paper through properly on one of the passes, so I wound up having to use that to cut up into ephemera. And so I just want to quickly show you the tags I was able to extract from that particular Masterboard. And here's a couple small ones. I can do some further embellishment. And here's a bookmark. And I used every little bit of that Masterboard to get these cutouts, and did that very easily by using my acrylic templates. And if you don't have templates, you ought to get them. I have a video. I'll try to link to it in the description box. I have a video that teaches you how to make your own set of templates, and I strongly advise you to watch that and make your own. It just makes deciding placement for your various ephemera so much easier, and then you also are going to find you're going to like the end result a lot better because you were able to really make good decisions as far as placement was concerned. So that's that. Moving on. Okay. Going a completely different direction. Here is a Masterboard. I cut up a print from a jelly plate and used that for background along with some scrapbook paper I had, and then I grabbed this lovely large image from a large book on birds that I happen to have, and did some fussy cutting and put those down, and I'm just really happy with that. If you were interested in making a journal featuring birds or wildlife or wilderness or whatever, this would be a great way to go. And I just think the colors just look so beautiful together. Well, then I needed a second masterboard that was going to give me similar palette, but not exactly the same. And I came up with this. And so you can see that this masterboard and this go nicely together. I added this fabric over here so that I would be bringing in some of that burgundy red that we see here and helping to, you know, pull the two together to work if they are printed back to back or if they are used as covers for two individual signatures in a journal. That's, you know, they would work very nicely that way as well. So here's what they look like printed off. There would be the front cover and the inside back. And then we have the inside front, I mean. And here we have the inside back and the back cover. I encourage you, when you make a masterboard, try to make a second one that's going to look and feel good with it so that you always have something that you can use together and you're not left stranded having to come up with something at the last minute because you just didn't plan ahead. I guess that's what I'm trying to get you to do, is plan ahead. Decide what all you're going to need, what the purpose of your masterboard is, and what all will you need to go with it. So here again, this is just made out of scraps of paper and scraps of fabric that I have in my stash here, and just using up odds and ends, throwing them down, trying to create a harmonious overall masterboard that looks good and feels good, bearing in mind where my halfway point is going to come so that I have a good right-hand page and a good left-hand page all on their own. And then I created, oops, went too far. Okay, I created this as my secondary board. It's a lot simpler, but the palette is very similar and they would work together. And again, just using scraps, that's all I'm using up. Tons of scraps. And so let's see how it prints out. Okay, here's the front cover. I decided I liked my secondary board as the front cover, and so there's my front, and you open it up and there's the inside front. Sorry about the focus. There's the inside front, and then here's the inside back and the back page. And I could also add more ephemera on top if I choose, and it will depend on the journal whether I would choose to do that or not. And then I also took this particular masterboard and I made a copyboard of it. You can see my copyboard isn't as strong as the original, but I decided I would make, put a lot of more ephemera on top of the copyboard, and then possibly use this to cut up into smaller ephemera. And so you can always do that, and I encourage everybody to make copyboards and keep your originals intact, because you don't know what you might want to do with them in the future that you do not have planned for at this point in time. And now let me show you some tags that I got from the 2 Masterboards. Here's a small one, a bookmark, a medium-sized tag, and 2 large tags. And what I did is I embellished them, of course, with butterflies. And that's a way of, you know, adding a little pop of color. And so these were all tags I got from the first Masterboard. And then, let me see. These are tags I got from the one that I embellished on the front end. So I got this small tag and this one, a medium-sized tag, and 2 large tags. And let me move those down a little bit so you can see them better. And then I've got quite a few little pieces left over that can be used for art cards or, you know, just embellishments on other things. And so you can see how fun and versatile they are, and play around with them. And of course these tags are all going to blend very nicely with the tags that I made earlier. You can see, you know, how it was taken from the same, a second copyboard, and you can see the elements there in the background, and then they've just been embellished a little differently. So it gives you a lot of variety and a lot of interesting looking ephemera that you can use throughout a journal, particularly if you're working with a journal that you have a set color scheme, a color palette that you want to use throughout to be consistent and to add extra unity. And so this is a nifty way to accomplish that. And lastly, I have this Masterboard. Again, I used some strips I cut from a jelly plate that I had made and coordinated and with some scrapbook paper, and then embellished with some stickers and the word inspire, and I put a piece of fabric down here. Well, in order to make the secondary Masterboard kind of coordinate, I used more of the same fabric idea, and it's a little different fabric but the same color, and although this has more green in it. And so you can see in my originals the colors work very well. We're into this reddish orange and you know, some bits of yellow. This was taken from a second jelly plate that I had made, and there's a third one up there. And you know, just cutting them up and pasting them down on a new Masterboard gives you a tremendous amount of options of how you can use them. And then this is the printed version. Now look how washed out my printer gave me from my original, and that's just kind of disappointing, but that's what happens on some of the cardstock. If you use presentation paper or photo paper, which is expensive but it's more lightweight, you'll get a better representation than you can on cardstock. But you know, you live with what you wind up getting. And so this was the image I chose for the cover, and then you open it up and you see this, and then this winds up being the inside back and then the back page. And unfortunately, while my originals are very nicely color coordinated, on the copy I wound up with a much stronger red on the inside and a very subdued orange on the back side. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, and you just gotta go with what you're able to get and be okay with it. This is junk journaling after all, and we're not seeking perfection. We are seeking to have fun and to have a reasonable amount of color harmony. And what happened here? I got all twisted up. Anyway, so that's what's going on, and I hope I've inspired you to make copyboards and to experiment with lots of different styles and colors and feeling, and to try to always make a secondary copyboard that feels complementary and has similar color palette and feel to it as the first one. I hope you found some inspiration here and perhaps learned something you didn't know already. Please give me a like and a comment, and I would really like to hear from you and appreciate it so much. That said, this is Miss Darling calling this a wrap. Bye-bye.